I watched the live face reveal of one of my favorite YouTubers. What I saw will always haunt me. Written by Colt Leasure. I come from a small mining town in Arizona, where there is not a lot to do except hike. It was a good but boring area to grow up. Our population was small with little to no crime. My father, he left me to a sizable inheritance after he passed away. I bought a truck and a house out in the plains with a baseball court and a pool. That was the sole extent of my lavish spending, but it was all I needed, unless you count pizza. I didn't have many vices to blow my fortune on. I've never been an avid party goer. Lucky, like a lot of people my age, one indulgence I did have was watching YouTube. Urban exploration became a most searched category of mine from 2009 and on. I became a subscriber and a content creator of UrbanX Vlogger. Isolation Infinity. He kept himself anonymous and did not show his face. He used footage of the haunts he went into as captured by the body cam strapped to his chest. His voice, baritone, became a signature element of his channel. He traveled all over the world and went to many chilling places. These included vacant hospitals, asylums, morgues, train stations. He even stumbled upon a murder in progress once. A homeless man had stomped another transient to death in a farmhouse. He uploaded edited parts of it. This was a controversial decision. It almost resulted in a lifetime ban for him and in the platform. The clips did help law enforcement later on, though. Nonetheless, he was also arrested a few times for trespassing on famous estates. The Houdini Mansion in Los Angeles was one of them. But none of his fans held this against him. We respected him for being willing to get into trouble with the law in the pursuit of the next viral video. Late last year, Isolation Infinity announced he was going to have a live face reveal. It was only going to be for his patrons, i.e. those that gave him money for his Patreon accounts. I contributed funds to it on a monthly basis. I viewed him as a pioneer of his entertainment niche and didn't mind spending a little change. He emailed me and told me I was one of a dozen who attended the live event. He further stated it would be in a password-protected chat room. He also promised an exclusive video which he would not make to the public video lineup. He was more interested in the latter than the former. I never cared what his appearance was since I already had a vision of someone my age in their mid to late 20s. It was hard to convince me he looked anything different from the picture in my mind. Still, I was not going to turn down the chance to find out. Being able to brag to his diehard followers who did not get the experience would be worth it alone. The night of the scheduled face reveal, I booted up my PC. I kicked back on the lounge chair in the second story of my house, which was my entertainment space. It was a complete with video game consoles, my beloved Alienware computer, and an open bag of pepper jerky and a bottle of ginger ale sat next to my keyboard. I went into my email. The password was in my inbox. I followed the link. It led me to the video of a room with nothing in it but a red wall and a baby blue frame. The caption, Isolation Infinity will be on shortly, rested at the bottom of the screen. I expected a home studio, and instead I got what appeared to be someone's dingy basement in need of a new coat of paint. What bothered me the most was the sound of heavy machinery whirring in the background. I wrote it off as bad plumbing. Then a man came into frame. He was slim and wore a trench coat with maroon buttons on its front. He reached down, grabbed the lens of the camera, and shifted it forward. The familiar voice we all had grown fond of started to count down. "Are you ready to see who I am?" He hoisted it upwards, pointed at his face, and I froze. He looked nothing like what I had visualized. He was hairless, emancipated, pale, had a marble black eyes. He reminded me of Werner Krauss from the old German 1920 films, The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari. His mouth hung open and tilted to the side, as if he could not control the movement of his jaw. The most alarming thing to me was not how his features were not flattering. That explained why he valued being off camera. But what upset me the most in the beginning was how the disparity of his perceived age made me feel lied to. He always told his fans he was a young man, like most of his demographic. The individuals before me on the screen was in his 50s at the earliest. I had been fantasizing and broadcasting this for a long time, he said, licking his lips. You have made it possible, so I need to show my appreciation by giving thanks in the most sincere way I know how. He moved the camera to the left, and I could not believe what I saw. A woman in her 30s sat on a grimy floor, her head down from evident exhaustion. Rusted chains circled her arms. She wore a tattered black top, as though someone's knife or nails had left wounds on portions of her torso. Stains were on her clothes. She had spent time in the dirt fighting someone or clawing her way out of a soiled embankment before this. Say something, he ordered. Tell them you can't wait to die. The blades of a chainsaw came to view, and its motor revved. She whimpered with pain, and when she tried to murmur something, I saw blood drip from her mouth. I dragged the mouse cursor over to the right-hand side of the screen to see how many people were in the chat. The answer I received left me weak. No one else was there but me. The others had either left or were never there to begin with, and I was too stupid to notice until then. My heartbeat increased as I tried to close the window out, but I could not. The X symbol on the right-hand side was visible but useless. It was like every virus-infected pop-up that you can't escape from. What? Infinity Isolation asked. You don't like it, Mark? Everything I do is to make my most devoted subscribers happy. A chill ran through me. He knew my name. It took me a second to realize he had gotten it through my membership through his Patreon. The fact that he was aware of how I was his only viewer worried me. How was I going to be the sole witness to a barbaric act of murder? Calm down, I reassured myself. This is an elaborate prank. He's recording right now. He's wearing scary Hollywood makeup. She's an actress. This is all for the sake of getting more views. The chainsaw has to be a prop from Etsy or something. Still, my hand inched forward to the phone to call 911. The way the woman expressed her misery in the moment, it was all too convincing. I held the device closer to my ear. I wouldn't do that if I were you, Mark. He stared right at the screen for a moment, his eyes making perfect contact with mine. He can see me. He lifted the chainsaw above the woman's head. He brought it down with the noise from his throat, which sounded like a cross between a scream and a laugh, and a fountain of gore just spurted out. The lens got hit with crimson bubbles. He crackled and laughed as I unplugged my computer. I carried it downstairs to my car and drove to the nearest police station. I filled out an incident report in an office with a dying lamp and the scowl of a detective facing me. He looked as though he would have rather been anywhere else but at work. For the first 2 hours there, I had to convince him that I was not a crazy person. They thought I was there to waste their time with a fanciful tale of my correspondence with some creep. I hope it was all a hoax, I said. If this is not real, no one would be happier about it than me. Here's my computer. See if you can trace where he's at and in case it... I gagged before I could complete my thought. The idea of it being authentic was overwhelming. They had cybercrimes to go over everything, and a few days later I got my PC back. It took about a week before I received a call from somebody working on the case. She was a homicide investigator named Samantha Brown. "We found the killer. He was streaming from a bunker in Virginia," she said. "It's a famous fallout shelter abandoned since the Cold War. He calls himself the I-73 Butcher, since that highway is his preferred route. He uses it as a screen name on the dark web." "Infinity Isolation is a serial killer?" I asked with a knot in my stomach. "No," she said. "The real Isolation Infinity is somewhere else. This maniac poses as famous people. He uses a combination of tools including voice alteration software and encrypted Wi-Fi. He hacks into their accounts. He gets a thrill out of making complete strangers watch his acts of terror. His tech-savvy ways also allow him to control other people's webcams. We don't know how many times he has breached. He is on several most wanted lists of different agencies. We had never found out what he looks like. The faces he uses on those terrible live streams are all prosthetic, and has avoided the news cycle. I'm sorry you saw so much torment. The good part is, you turning in your computer helped us at least find out his last known whereabouts. The scene's searched, and we have some evidence. He's still out there somewhere? For now." I went to bed that night with a host of emotions. I felt violated by a complete monster that sabotaged my privacy. Moreover, I felt dumb for getting swindled. I still feel shivers over the fact that he is not apprehended. Word of what happened got to the real Isolation Infinity, who as of late deleted his entire channel. Many speculated on how victims making him for an insane person perceived to be him. Sometimes, as I lay in my head down to drift to sleep, I hear a noise by my window. I jump up and think it's a chainsaw. Thus far, it had been a neighbor's lawnmower. Every time, I hope it ends that way. That was I watched the live face reveal of one of my favorite YouTubers. What I saw will always haunt me. Written by Colt Leasure and posted on the No Sleep subreddit.